If you bring your attention back to the room, we'll continue. Bob Childers has some thoughts he'd like to share with us.
Steve, I can't get up out of this chair until you.
Oh,
You're missing on your assignment.
Glued into it.
and he mobilizes you.
Yeah, it am I right? I just can't move.
Don't have a clear path without a whiteboard. Yes.
Not yet.
Okay.
Stephen, thank you for being truly helpful for Bob.
Thank you.
Oh, wow.
Good example.
Yeah, I don't know what I would have done without that. I guess I guess I'd just sit there.
Yeah, just can't think straight.
No. We're taught in the course that the essence of our being is love. That means that's the essence of your being. It means it's the essence of mine as well. Sometimes we might forget that. But the course brings it back to our attention in so many ways. The other day, someone made a remark to me that was interesting and helpful about the nature of love. Someone said to me, what was it? Oh, yes, that I was sheltered and naive. Well, I decided, I wonder if that's a compliment. Don't think so. And so, but I got a really good thought from it. And the thought I got, you know, if that doesn't feel loving to me, I have no idea what the other person, I can't read other people's minds. It didn't feel loving to me. You know what the course says about that? Not that it's an attack. It doesn't say that. It says it's a call for love. Okay. And so this is not meant to reflect back on the person that said that, because I have no idea of any individual's particular ideas. I can't read your minds. But it gave me a good idea. And I said, you know, if that were a call for love, then what it gives me a good idea for a talk. Okay. I always appreciate that. And so let's suppose that someone, it doesn't matter who or for what reason, I don't need to be concerned about that. But they say, how would that be a call for love? And here's the idea I came, and I'm not implying that that's what the person meant. I had no idea. It's okay, whatever he or she meant. But here's the idea I got from that. If someone says, who comes here and listens to what we say, says, Bob, I think your life was sheltered and you're naive. I'm saying, oh, they may be having difficulty with some of the blunt remarks that I sometimes make, just assertions out to infinity about something or other that I believe. I said, you know, the people there, I don't want you to think, unless you just have to, I guess, that my life has always been sheltered. It's only been sheltered since I was, I'd say about 50 years old, or 52. Prior to then, there was nothing. Now, Danny's got some shelter.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he stepped out of the way. Now, so I'd like to talk a little bit about my life before I was 50. Why did things change when I was 50? I found the Course in Miracles. And ever since then, yes, indeed, it has been sheltered. But before then, I don't who care. I don't usually bore people with my boring past. But I thought maybe it would be helpful to say a few remarks. So take it in that vein, if you like. I'm not just up here say, I think I'll tell people how about my really interesting past. Well, there was nothing particularly interesting in it. And besides, the past is gone, so why belabor the past? But I thought that maybe in this respect, it might be of some value. Uh, my parents weren't wealthy enough to do much sheltering. I mean, it's just ordinary. My dad was a working guy and worked really hard on the railroad. And my mother died when I was 10. I think I had a sheltered life up to 10, although I don't remember because my parents were really fine parents as far as I'm able to tell. And you got here just in time to hear a little bit about my fantastically interesting past.
Short recap.
And I'm making the point that my life became sheltered at age 52, I believe it was, or 53. Maybe took a little while to get some of these ideas going. But before then, not particularly. I mean, although when I'm saying, did I have any problems of note? Well, you know what? I didn't. I ought to have. My mother died when I was 10, but she prepared my sister and I for that event she had cancer of the throat, with emotion withdrawing from us. She did that on purpose. That's what my dad has told me. So that we will not, and I remember coming home the day she passed away, and my sister and I were with our aunt and uncle, and we came home and I noticed all these cars around our house, and Dad came in, went down on one knee, and he said, "Bob and Linda, your mother has passed away." And so we both burst into tears, and I cried for 30 minutes or 40 minutes, and then never thought another thing about it. I don't know. And you know what? I also remember prior to that time, I noticed it, even as a little kid, that I enjoyed sad movies. This is before she died. It's as if I was practicing, getting ready, I've never mentioned that to anybody, but I took note of that. Bob, why do you enjoy these sad movies for? I don't know. But, and so after that little burst of sadness was over, I didn't think about it anymore. And as a little boy, I was just not very bright or sensitive. I just like to play. That's, you can't really exactly call that bright sensitive. It's just what I like to do. So I didn't think about it anymore. And Dad was that way too. Something happened, he just kept going. He didn't, he told me, he said, "Mom, I need to get I need to find someone to marry, to be close to." I said, "Well, you got me." He said, "Well, that's not enough. And besides, I need someone to take care of you and Linda." My aunt and uncle moved all the way from Dallas into Fort Worth to live at our house and take care of us, which was really neat, I guess. But Dad always was a little concerned about my uncle who was living there. He managed a green at the Dallas Country Club, and he carried a 45 caliber pistol. And Dad says, every time I come home, I don't know whether Otis is going to be meeting me there with a 45 pistol in my hand. Well, I didn't ask about why he thought that, but Otis was a quiet man. So I guess Dad was just letting his imagination go. But at any rate, Dad married again in a few months. And my stepmother and I didn't get along. At first, it was all right, but eventually I realized she favored her daughter over Linda and I. I knew that because I would keep records. I mean, when her daughter did something wrong, okay, I'd write it down, and then the punishment would be, wash the dishes for 2 days. Okay, then I did the same thing. I was washing dishes for 8 days. I said, "Hey, whoa, not fair." I really remember doing that and deciding right then, I'm not going to bother with what this woman says. I'm going to do it, but I'm not going to care because I don't trust her judgment. She doesn't parcel out her justice fairly. It just, and so she did not intrude on my happiness because I did not try to please her. Now, my sister was only 4. No, I was 10. She was 6. She was only 6, and she thought that woman was our mother. I knew our mother was in the grave. That was not our mother. But, and so I wasn't trying to please, and besides she wasn't fair, so I wasn't gonna try to please her. But I was grateful that she was a good provider of meals. She was a good cook, and that was always good. And she took us where we needed to go, but she was not loving. So I did not receive love from my mother from 10 on. It just wasn't there. It was like a big zero. But I didn't care. I could play. That's really all I was interested in. I spent my whole my high school life, I just played basketball. I didn't do anything else. And I loved it. Lord, I love that probably more that and physics have been my two greatest loves in the world that I've ever had. Not excluding people, but as far as activities are concerned. And so there was no problem there. I really had no problems in high school. It didn't exist. I just played basketball all the time, took care of it. Then I went to high school and I mean to college. I loved that. And I found physics there, and I continued to have no problems. So, Bob, you're pretty. Are you sheltered? Well, I'm just not running into problems. Nobody's hovering over me, keeping them away, as far as I know. However, there were a few times when you look back that made me feel like my mother, that somebody was helping me, and a psychic later told me that your mother has been watching over you ever since she died. And there were some things that just happened that if they hadn't gone this way, it would have been disastrous, but they went that way, you see. And I said, well, that makes sense to me. And I'm very appreciative of that. And I could tell you stories about that, but I don't want to take up too much time on that. And then when I went to work after graduating and getting a PhD, I went to work, and then I had a problem. That was, I guess, the first problem of my life, because there was a man there well, first, I idolized physics. That's a mistake. And by doing that, I idolized the people who knew physics, which were my senior director, theoretical physicist, who looked over the group of people that we were called postdocs, is what we were called. And he liked to put you down, direct you, and make sure you go this way or that way. But first, he wants to put you down. I later heard that he missed killing people. He was flew a fighter plane in Korea and liked to gun down the little bodies. But anyway, I don't know whether putting us down was a substitute for that or not. But at any rate, that's what he did. And he would assault you with passive aggressive. You know what that means? Well, it's just, you ask a question and he'll say, well, it's this and this and this, as any child would know. That's passive aggressive. So, well, he does that purposely. And I turned out later he did it to all of us. I only knew he was doing it to me, but I could not see it because I was blinded by raising him up as an idol. Oh, he couldn't possibly be saying anything bad about me. Well, actually, he could. But see, I was too. That was naive, I would say. I was naive as hell there. I didn't know anything about people. I thought they were all nice and good people, surely, particularly if they were physicists. See, and that's a big error of thought. I guess what you want to take from that is don't put anybody on a pedestal. Nobody, zero. And I don't care whether they're your favorite thought system or your favorite person in your family clan or a political person or a religious person, the Pope, whoever. Don't. If you want to do Jesus, great. If you want to put him on a pedestal, there's really not a problem there, as far as I can tell. And so, or any other totally enlightened person, that's not going to be a problem. But I had put him on a pedestal, and it took me several months to finally admit to myself, that guy, what he's doing is not good. I don't like it. But by then, my thyroid gland had broken. I was so slow. The thyroid gland is a response to stress. Fortunately, I felt, in fact, I think I was a little sheltered there. If you're going to break a gland, the thyroid is the one to break because it's so easily treatable. I mean, it's just duck soup to treat that. You know, what they did, mine was overactive, so that's hard to treat. So they destroy it totally, and then just give you thyroid pills, which is just a natural substance your body would make anyhow. There's no side effect. Hey, it's just not a problem. You know. So, but it took the doctors 2 months to diagnose this properly, and in that 2 months, I lost 25 pounds, and I was tired all the time. It was tired to get up. I was tired to lay down. It was tired to sit down. It's tired to walk. You know, that gland's just not working right for you, and you're not metabolizing energy properly. But eventually, like I said, the solution was found. So it's not been a problem since then, but I regarded that as a problem. Now, I didn't know the course of miracles, but I'd read the Bible. I'd read it through and through. And I knew that forgiveness was important. So I forgave that guy. I did not hold a grudge against that man. He was no longer a problem for me. Oh, I went in there and told him, hey, bud, we're not having this anymore. Because he'd pull me into his office and run me down there too. That's just not occurring anymore. Now, that wasn't easy for me to do then. I would not have a problem doing that now, but but then I had a problem. I had to rev myself up to such an extent that if necessary, I would burn his blasted house to the ground. I wouldn't really, but you have to think that. To get revved up enough to present your situation to this guy. Well, because I wouldn't know what. I wouldn't even try. But I had to get to feeling like I would. I don't have to go there now, thank God. But right then there was no gray in between. It was black or white. Because what if he tried to put me down more? You see, I had to have the oomph to match. I was not going to be put down again. This was the end of that. And I said, and furthermore, I'm not, you know, and then I went to the head of the department and said, just not coming back here next year. I had a 2-year appointment. I don't care for this, blah, blah, blah. And the head of the department came back and said, look, that guy talked to me. He does this to all the guys that come in. And he really respects you because you stood up to him. And I said, well, whatever. But I decided to stay again, so I did and completed that stay. Now that's the only problem. No, oh no. Oh my gosh, I forgot. I had one other huge problem. That was a minor problem, actually, come to think about it. Now, I'm not going to go into what the huge problem is, because you're going to be able to find that out when the website is ready. I'm going to, like I say, I have no interest in talking about the past. It's gone, it's done, and so what, in general. But if I have a specific reason, I will. I had thought about a specific reason this morning. And the reason I'm doing this is I'm kind of wanting people to understand that if I say something extreme, like, well, I say I'm never afraid. Well, I can think of at least one instance where I had a little streak of fear, but basically that's the way I go through life. I'm not doing that because life is so easy. I'm doing that because my mind makes it that way for me. So I'm not saying you can't get off the hook if it's not making it that way for you. It can. All you got, it's about application. So I like to say things as forcefully as I can possibly think of a way to do it without just standing up screaming and shouting, which doesn't make it any better. But the Course of Miracles will make your life not have problems. And if you apply it 100%, it will work 100%. If you apply it 80%, it will work 80%. It works. To what extent you want it to work, well, that's up to you. And so that's why I was mentioning this really, is I don't want you to be misled into thinking, oh, that guy just got a sheltered life and he never has any, doesn't imply that it won't work for me. No, I have a shelter, if to the extent that I have a sheltered life. And I feel that past 50 years of age, I have a sheltered life, 52 actually. In fact, I was so unhappy before then. My daughter used to say I was the most unhappy man she had ever known before I was 52 years old. And then suddenly everything that ended. That's because I believe this stuff 100 freaking fucking percent. Do you? If so, it will work 100%. It did for me. Hey, I'm not special. Just another body, another mind. It will work for you. And one of the main ways that it worked for me was 1 year after I discovered that. Oh, a few months after I discovered it, I had a stroke. I think I probably mentioned that before. It was effortless and painless. Of course, strokes are always painless, but the sharp instruments they stick into you are not necessarily painful. And they do that a whole lot because they do a lot of tests. They want to figure out why, and the why really didn't make much difference. I didn't have sense enough to, when you're ill, you are depleted in a personal sense. You don't have as much personal oomph. Does that make sense to you all? I mean, you're laying on a bed, you know something's wrong, you can feel nothing on that side. You're not going to get up and do push-ups here and say, I'm in charge, besides there are tubes in your arm. So you don't have quite the amount of oomph that you would normally have. And I wasn't about to tell them not to do their test. I knew something was wrong, you know. So I did have enough sense later when the doctor, after I was finished with all that, the doctor dismissed me and said, I want you to take an aspirin every day. That thins the blood and that helps to prevent stroke. But I'd already asked him if I would be any more prone to strokes than anybody else who hadn't already had one. He said no. So I said, that's ridiculous. Now he's saying yes. I'm going to go with a no. I mean, if I'm not more prone to it, I'm not going to take an aspirin a day, you know, unless everybody in the world should take an aspirin a day, which I do not believe. I'm sure he wasn't taking. Well, I didn't ask him. It didn't make any difference. So, but in other words, by that time, I was able to decide for myself what I wanted and what I didn't. I certainly didn't want an aspirin unnecessarily. But the point of it was that was effortless through there. There was no pain where I would have expected to be in pain. And you know, the one thought I remembered through that whole time, I was a little new to the course, but I took to it quickly. And that was the Holy Spirit leads you in no direct. The Holy Spirit leads you in a direction only so as to avoid increase in pain. I'm not getting that quite right, but it's pretty close. Any direction that the Holy Spirit leads you will be one that does not involve an increase in pain. So, okay, I'm holding on to that one. I'm in here in this hospital, laying on my back, and people are coming at me with knives. Kind people, but no matter, the knives are just as sharp. and I got through, I did not experience pain. I was in their hospital 8 days. And said, well, Bob, did it affect your mind? Because that can also occur in stroke. In fact, a friend of mine asked me that after I was through. My first day back to work, I asked George, my friend, to come with me to my class because, you see, I had a cane. That's one hand. I had notes to hold, which I read from. That's two hands. And now somebody needs to hold the chalk. I don't have another arm. So I had to get up there and put the cane down. I said, George, if I can't do this, I want you to step up here and finish this lecture for me. Well, it turned out the cane wasn't needed, and I got through the lecture. So after we were through, George asked me, he said, Bob, did that stroke affect you mentally? I said, no, George, I've always been this way. just joking with him. So it didn't have a mental effect. But that was the beginning of easy lessons for me. Now all this is about faith and miracles, because miracles are intended to bring faith. Because, in other words, blind faith is not near as strong as sighted faith. That is faith based on what you've seen and experienced. And so you see and experience miracles of all kinds. And then you say, well, this is truth. It's not, iffy stuff. This is truth. And so your faith in that begins to build. And so but prior to that, that was when I was 50. Prior to that, more like when I was 30 years old, had a huge problem that lasted for at least 10 to 12 or 13 years, where I was so utterly miserable, I just wish I was dead. In fact, I didn't even wish I'd been created. I mean, it was so immense. And this is before I knew the course. And I'm not going to go into all that, but because it's neither here nor there, it's the past. But, and that's why my daughter said I was the most unhappy man she knew, that I was going through that particular situation. It is going to be available to the public in my website because it's a marketing device. It's just a crass, low-life effort to get somebody to stay with my website long enough to maybe read a book or two. But it means nothing to me now. But it's there, and it'll probably be another month before the website is ready. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank Dan for all this recording that he does, because I've been able to get, I'll have 50 or 60 videos now that can be accessed from my website. It's going to be a new one added each week, and it's all because, of course, I should thank whoever invented the iPhone more so than Dan, but both those inventors and Dan is what makes it possible for me to record these things, and I think that will be a plus. So I'm wanting to make the website as good as I possibly can. So I'm going to put in information that I otherwise think is irrelevant and beside the point. But I've been told, people in marketing, people like to have some idea about who you are or where you came from before they read it. Whatever you're trying to get them to read. And so I said, okay, fine, here it is. And so I did it as well as I could. And so there will be a selection in my website, hopefully, not just home, contact us, shop, which always goes across the top of a website, but one that says poetry and art, because that's what got me through the hard time. And I have poems I wrote 50 years ago. They all were written 50 years. That's how I got through the emotional difficulty. You don't want to suppress that stuff. When you feel bad, you want to express it in some way or other, and that's the way I would express it. So at any rate, the main point being made here is that I don't mind whether you do or do not read the course. It really doesn't. That's your choice. I'm happy for you if it helps you, and if it doesn't help you, I hope you find something that does. That doesn't. But I don't care what. Doesn't matter. We're all moving to the top of a mountain. We don't have to follow the same path. Just think of a mountain. They're all paths coming from all different angles, and they look different. Every path looks different. One path might be rocky, another might have a lot of sand in it, and a lot of just overgrowth. It doesn't matter. There's only one summit, though, and we're all going to the same summit. So what you want to do is find a method and a method of inspiration that will help you along your particular path. You see, the person walking through undergrowth might need a pair of cutters, to cut away the undergrowth, or a machete even. The person walking up on a sandy path has no need of either. Your path doesn't matter to other people. It's only important to you. And so the prayer for others is always on my part, may they receive God's will. That's, I think I mentioned that before in here, that if I'm going to pray for you, that's what I'm going to pray, because I don't know what's best for you. I wouldn't unless I knew your path. And whatever place you are on in your path is right, perfectly right for you at this time. If you were a serial killer, I would say the same thing at a distance, a large distance from you. But it doesn't matter. It truly doesn't. Whether it's an easy time or a hard time, doesn't matter. But it is true that since age 52, I feel my life has been sheltered by the Holy Spirit. I said my parents weren't able to, I don't know who else would do it. And with help from my mother from above, because again, she was probably overlooking this whole thing. And I'm just going to conclude with one little final story that some of you have heard, I'm sure, because I like to tell it. But there are Zoom people out there, presumably, that haven't heard it, about how it seemed to me that somebody, and it could have been my mother just as well as an angel or something else, was hovering above me, because in order to get a PhD from Vanderbilt, you have to learn German, basically. And I am horrible at language, just, god awful. Just, my daughter can pick them up, but yeah, I can pick it up and set it down. Well, and the way you did that, you took a course in the summer that was designed for that specific purpose, to get people who need a language for their degree. And so I took that course, and the teacher said, okay, I want you to get 3 books in your area, physics in my area, and you practice on them. And then at the exam, you bring the 3 books, I'll pick one, pick a page for you to read, and you'll have to read so many words per minute, 20, 50, I don't know. Well, I started doing that, and I realized that it took me an hour to translate 3 sentences. I mean, there is no way in hell I'm going to get through this. But for whatever reason, my mind didn't focus on that. I really thought all is well. And if you ask me why I had that thought, I have no idea. This is before the course now. If it's after the course, I'd just say, well, I learned that in the Course in Miracles. Well, I was unreflective about it. I just never even thought about it. I'm just going forward. I just put one foot in front of the other and go forward. I just didn't worry. And so, but I got my books, and it just so happened, I always pick this one, turn to this particular one page. That's a nice page. We'll translate that. And 2 hours later, I had it translated, let's say. Well, come back next. I just do the same page again and again. And it just kept being 2 hours or 1 hour. Finally, it got down shorter. I could translate that page in just a few minutes, because I practically got it memorized, So I took these 3 books to him, and I had no thought about how I would pass. Now, we already got a job lined up. All PhD requirements are met. And I just got married, and I got a job lined up in Chicago. And here I give him these 3 books. And you know what he did? He took the book I looked at most. He opened it up to the one page. And he said, translate that. I could have shut my eyes and wrote almost. Yes, I translated that in the 10 minutes that I had, or whatever it was. No problem. And just walked on out. Now, I felt that was help from somewhere. And according to the psychics, I bet it was my mother saying, pushing his hand over to the right book and to the right page, because that was the one page and the only page that I could have translated, even, in the time that I had, which was a few minutes away. So I went out of there. I had passed that, and I moved, and I was married at that point, and I moved to. That reminds me. I want to take this opportunity to express gratitude to a person that did shelter me. It just occurred to me there has been one. My parents really didn't have the opportunity. I'm sure they would have. Dad would have not sheltered me. And if he had, I wouldn't even wanted it. But he wasn't of that mentality. But there was someone who did, and that was my first wife. Bless her soul. She had a bunch to shelter, a bunch of sheltering to do, because there were things I just did not know and understand. And she stayed with me and was helpful and was a truly wonderful person. And then we eventually went our ways and separated. But I just wanted to take that opportunity because her name is Sydney. That was my first wife. She passed, and she was a wonderful lady. By the time we separated, we were at different places, but she was truly a trooper, you might say, and stayed with me all through those bad years. She was not much she could do, but she was still there, and she was a fine mother as well. Well, I hope that some of this has given you a little bit of insight. My main motivation, again, is that you want your perception to be innocent. To others, that may look like it's naive. It doesn't really matter what it looks like to others. What matters is that you experience perception that is through the Holy Spirit, and then it will be innocent. And to the extent that you can take these ideas at heart, they work. But you have to work too, you see. Now, and what's really good about the Course is it comes in and it says you have sneaky ways of making it not work. And to attack those or get at them, you need to let go of your defenses. We all know that, particularly in the workbook, I think, that it's a very big conclusion. If you hold on to your defenses, you're saying, God doesn't have to protect me. I'm doing it. Well, that's fine. Guess what? You don't get his protection. And don't forget sheltered life. The world's going to dump whatever it dumps on you, But you must make an effort to let go of your defenses. Which ones? It doesn't matter. It's just that making the effort to do that convinces your bigger mind that you want help, and that allows God to bring his help to you. The Course makes a big issue of this. If you really want this to work, you must let go of your defenses. Not totally. And again, it's not a literal thing. Like it says, if you make your locks bigger or put more of them on your door, it's not about the Holy Spirit's going to count the number of locks on your door. It's more like you must let go of the fact that the door can protect you, no matter how well barred it is. There's no door that can't be broken down. If they can't break it down, they come through the window. I mean, it's just you can't protect yourself perfectly. The Course says this, only God's love can protect you and will do so. That's my addition. In all circumstances, if you allow, and if you're making your own defenses, you're not allowing. Not that you're not bad because of that. You're just not going to get God his protection. That's all. He's not going to, because when you defend yourself, you're saying, God, I don't want your help. You may not think you're saying that, but you are. That's just the way it seems to work. And that's why the Course says you must let go of your defenses. We are here to let God do everything for us through the Holy Spirit. Everything. That's 100%. Well, does anyone hit 100%? Well, you can get as close. I don't know about that. When you're totally enlightened, you do. I don't claim to be totally enlightened. But when I make an error, I correct it as soon as I become aware of it. It's a religion, almost. Error. Oh, okay. Holy Spirit, error. Get rid of it. There's a procedure. Last paragraph of chapter 5. It's summarized right there. That when you make an error, you let go of it. You let the Holy Spirit release it for you, actually. And it removes, by the way, in that procedure, that's the one that says the Holy Spirit will remove all the consequences of your wrong decision if you let it. But you have to be willing to go and put your mind at where the wrong decision was made. You can't be hiding from it. I'm sorry, that's not good enough. You have to go there. And then the Holy Spirit will do that. That means, it just occurred to me recently, that means that kills karma. Because one of the consequences might be, well, you got to come back in another life and do something about that. All those consequences are gone. that's what karma's about and reincarnation is about, as I understand it. You know, I do some stuff here. I don't really take, not responsible for it. And so I've got some grievances. And so next life I've got to, oh, I'm prejudiced against all Asians. Have you heard in the news that people are attacking Asians now? You hear that? California, they're attacking. Yes, it's ridiculous. But no matter. And if I'm one of those, then I got to come back next time, probably as an Asian in some country or other. So when you use this procedure and ask the Holy Spirit to do this, He removes all the consequences. That means there is no consequence. You'll have to take care of in your next life. You may not need a next life. See, remove all of them. And if it removes all of them, why do you need a next life? And physical life, that's what I'm talking about. That's what karma is about. You know, I do something that's not loving. The consequence, I manage to keep the consequences away from me. And the universe says, that's fine, but you still got to deal with this. Go back there and get hit with this again. You see, well, all those consequences are gone. If all of them are gone, what is the need to come back? I see it's evaporated. So by all means, anytime you make an error, you immediately give it to the Holy Spirit and use that procedure if necessary. Again, the last paragraph of chapter 5 summarizes it. We've made mention of that before. Our time has run out, more or less. And so I'm going to quit here unless there's a comment or question. I'll just take a second to see if anybody's got it. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Bob.